Yeah, I think they've.
Just waiting for the clock on my machine to say 6:15. So I figure that's, there we go. That's a little more universal time. So welcome everybody in here and out there. Vice Mayor Tiedemann is joining us remotely, as you will see. And with that, I call the meeting to order. City Clerk, if you please call the roll.
Councilmember McQuay?
Here.
Councilmember Nason?
Here.
Vice Mayor Tiedemann?
Here.
And Mayor Jordan?
Here. So this is a special meeting of the Albany City Council for this day, November 21st, 2022. And the council will conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation, specifically City of Albany versus Albany Lions Club, Lions International et al. In Alameda County Superior Court, Lions Club of Albany, California versus City of Albany, United States District Court, Northern District. These cases regard the future of the Latin Cross on Albany Hill. Are there any attendees who would like to make a comment? There's nobody in the room. I don't know if there's anybody attending virtually.
No one raised their hand.
Okay, very good. Then I guess with that, we will go to closed session and we will come back and start the regular meeting at 7 o'clock. I'm lost. Yeah. All right, seeing that we're at 7 o'clock, confirming that we're still recording. I believe the recording doesn't stop, so okay, very good. I will call this meeting of, let's see, what day are we at? I always like to say this on here, November 21st, 2022, to order in service to the city. And if the Councilmember Nason would please read the land acknowledgement.
The City of Albany recognizes that we occupy the land originally protected by the Confederated villages of Lishan. We acknowledge the genocide that took place on these lands and must make strides to repay the moral debt that is owed to this indigenous people, specifically the Ohlone tribe. We thank them for their contributions, which have transformed our community and will continue to bring forth growth and unity. The City of Albany commits to sustaining ongoing relationships with the tribe and together build a better future for all that now make this their home.
Thank you. City Clerk, if you please call the roll.
Councilmember McCoy?
Here.
Councilmember Nason?
Here.
Vice Mayor Tiedemann?
Here.
And Mayor Jordan.
Here, thank you. And the council just had a closed session, and there is no reportable action from that session. Moving on to ceremonial matters, we have one item. It's a proclamation of retirement. I was looking forward to doing this myself, but I managed to break a bunch of fingers, and I think that's probably not the best situation for for doing this. So I've asked Councilman McQuaid if she would be so kind, and she is going to give the proclamation.
You want me to go over there, right?
I think I would. Yeah, I think that would be good.
Lieutenant Belman, would you like to come join me, please? City of Albany Proclamation in honor of Lieutenant David A. Belman, Jr. upon his retirement from the City of Albany. Whereas David A. Belman, Jr. commenced his service as an Albany police officer on February 15, 1990, and whereas David A. Belman, Jr. was selected as Officer of the Year in 1994, and whereas David A. Belman, Jr. served as a field training officer, detective, school resource officer, terrorism liaison, tactical response team member, hostage negotiator, taser instructor, administrative sergeant, and whereas David A. Belman, Jr. became a lieutenant in 2019, and whereas David A. Belman, Jr. took a leadership role in organizing many of the department's most successful National Night Out community engagement events, and whereas David A. Belman, Jr. coordinated the department's participation in the Toys for Tots program for several years, and whereas David A. Belman, Jr. brought innovative change to the department field training program, and whereas David A. Belman, Jr. has received numerous accolades, awards, commendations, and recognitions, and whereas David A. Belman, Jr. has served the City of Albany and the Albany Police Department in a professional, dedicated, and loyal manner, and whereas David A. Belman, Jr., after almost 33 years of faithful service, will retire from the Albany Police Department on December 31st, 2022, now therefore be it proclaimed that the Albany City Council wishes to express its gratitude and appreciation to Lieutenant David A. Belman, Jr. for his many years of dedicated service to the safety of the community. Dated November 21st, 2022, Preston Jordan, Mayor.
Hear, hear.
Just real quick, thank you, everybody. It's been a pleasure working for the City of Albany for all these years. It's been a wonderful city. Thanks.
Thank you for your service. And I think I hear that there are some folks who would like to comment. Is that my understanding, City Clerk? Okay. Surprise
Yeah,
guests even,
sure.
maybe.
I tried to promote your son and daughter, but I'm not seeing them right now. They didn't come up.
Oh, rejoining, I see Zoom reality. The tail end of that moment.
I'm not sure. Would either one of you like to speak? If so, you can unmute your mic.
Welcome if you're out there.
Hello.
Hello, we can hear you.
Hello, City of Albany. My name's Joseph. I'm Lieutenant Belman's son. Unfortunately, I won't be able to come tonight, but I just wanted to say, Dad, I'm super proud of you. You've been an amazing role model. I mean, the best father I can ever ask for. I mean, just growing up and just being a part of the number of events by the Albany Police Department and within the city. It was just a blessing and just a great way of growing up. And you're my number one dad. And I really appreciate it, Dad, for everything. Congratulations to you.
That's great, thank you.
We also have a general public. Go ahead.
This is Jeremiah Garrett Pinguello. Thank you, Lieutenant Belman, for your service in Albany. I know the police department always doesn't get the best rap from its citizens, but you definitely did a part in keeping our community safe. I know it's a very dangerous job. It's nice to hear your son speak. It's actually, an honor to have you in Albany because being a police officer, you come to work and you risk your life every day. You deal with a lot of guns and a lot of dangerous situations. So I just appreciate you for your service. And I heard you were the school resource officer once upon a time. And I want to thank you for that service because nowadays we don't have a school resource officer. And I think it's really important to have a school resource officer, especially nowadays because of the fentanyl epidemic. And so any positive suggestions you can to leave with the department on school resource officer, I know it'd be greatly appreciated, and myself, possibly along with the school district. So yeah, please leave some notes and advice about that school resource officer. It's much needed in our community once again. So appreciate your service. Keep up the good work and enjoy your retirement.
Thank you.
I believe that's it.
Thank you very much. Thank you again for your service, 32 years. That's pretty amazing. Much appreciated. And off to the next chapter.
That's an interesting approach.
That's what I got. I'm not going to use the gavel. So
I'll give you a high five.
on to the city manager's report, please.
I have a brief report tonight, so I'll keep us moving here. A reminder that we have an adjusted waste management collection pickup schedule around the holidays. So if your regular trash day is on the Thanksgiving holiday, your carts will be serviced the next day, so please keep them out. If you have any issues, contact Waste Management directly at 510-613-8710. We also have a wealth of information on our website and in our e-news about waste mitigation and hopefully keeping things out of the trash can and properly recycling or reusing them. So please take advantage of that information as well. I know we're all constantly, or at least I am, watching the updates of the Alameda County Registrar of Voters website with regard to our election. Very interesting, granted, with the new change in ranked choice voting at large. And these are still not the final results. The ballots are still being counted. and we anticipate certification to be announced at a later date. Ultimately, certification will occur with this council on December 12th for your official certification date. That would also be the date as established by the council with regard to the procedure and policy you've adopted via urgency ordinance for the appointment of that third individual for a seat on the council based on the results of the election outcome. Backed by popular demand, the Albany e-gift card offer began again today. Earlier this year, the city introduced this program as a community-based digital gift card that makes it easy to shop local. With this gift card, you can send it to friends and family as a fun gift or splurge on yourself while benefiting your local community. Today, the city launched a new gift card program of the buy one, get one matching offer up to $50. That means if you get a $50 e-gift card, another $50 e-gift card will be emailed to you from the city. So it basically doubles your opportunity. Learn more on our website here, choosealbany.org/shopalbany. And that one update on some other court decisions that we've had recently regarding 739 Madison. On November 10th, the court granted the city's motion for appointment of a receiver over the property. Once the court approves the rehabilitation plan with the receiver will hire contractors to do the work and make the necessary repairs. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager, and appreciate the update on the last item. It's unfortunate, but I want to thank staff for the long work that's been done on that, and I know that will continue. If anyone attending would like to ask a question about or comment on the City Manager's report, please press your raise hand button. You will have 1 minute. If you're on the phone, please raise your hand by pressing *9. Note this is for questions and comments on the City Manager's report only. If you have comments on matters not on the agenda, the time for those is next. In this and all comments and questions during the meeting, please address the council, not other attendees, and respect each person that has spoken. The council wants everyone to feel comfortable speaking and not be intimidated by others' comments or reactions. No hands in the room. Yep, got one out virtually. Welcome.
Thank you. This is Chair Mike Garrett Pinuelo. Yeah, regarding 739 Madison, my wife, Elaine Videa, was Natalia's attorney about 3 years ago. And, you know, I've done some research on myself regarding the property. The gentleman who owns the property, sometimes he sleeps underneath the BART tracks at nighttime. Also, I just want to give an update that inside the house, it's been thoroughly cleaned out. There's not much in there anymore. The backyard is looking a lot better. A lot of trees have been removed. A lot of brush has been removed. And so it's the city and the house is really making progress. So yeah, the house is a lot cleaner on the inside. There's hardly anything in there right now. And the backyard is making some progress. It's being cleaned up. So I just want to keep up the good work. Okay.
We're on to, yes, go ahead.
Comment. Regarding the e-gift cards, I just want to give a shout out to staff. I was having a really hard time figuring it out today, and with a little help from Ann Sue and Brennan Brown, I got through it. So thank you both very much.
That prompts me to ask, I think last time, which was the first time this was done, wasn't it already run out by now?
I think it was within 24 hours. So
24 hours,
yeah.
That was in like 6 hours.
It was a real tight window, though, so I may be exaggerating that time frame. It was shockingly short, so get them while they last.
Get in fast is the message. All right, very good, thank you. On to the good of the city. This is for attendees to provide the council comments, information, and questions on an item that is not on the agenda. Please stand, or if you're out in the world, raise your hand By phone again is *9. By state law known as the Brown Act, the council cannot discuss items that are not on the agenda except under extraordinary circumstances. Rather, items raised may be referred to a future agenda or to staff for comment. And with that, we will go to the individual in the room. Thanks for being here.
Over the years, there have been many issues that Peggy and I have disagreed upon. However, she has never been negative towards me and has always made me feel respected for my opinion. I'm sure that Peggy will be remembered for many actions she took while on the council. I want to beat others to it. I'm here tonight to highlight 2 of those actions. The first action she took was on behalf of the cost-burdened renters of Albany. Way back when we were trying to get the rent review program going, there was a very tense meeting in which the council was putting the final touches into the ordinance. The issue being considered was how much should the increase in rent be before the review triggered. The SEJC wanted CPI. The staff had already written 7% in the ordinance, and the landlords wanted at least 10%. Peggy exhibited 2 outstanding qualities for a city council member that night. She had empathy for the tenants. I need to repeat just one tenant story from that night. A family with a father, mother, and 2 children rented a house in Albany. Both parents worked full-time, and the father coached the children's soccer teams. Their rent got raised $800 a month. The father ended up having to get a second job and stop coaching his children's teams just so the family could stay in Albany. The other outstanding quality Peggy showed that night was courage. At that time, I was afraid of the landlords and their power, although I knew that not that many actually lived here in Albany. I felt that the staff gave the landlords way too much power. I remembered sitting there that night thinking that if the 7% or greater was the final outcome, literally years of working on the rent review would be for naught with such unreasonably allowed annual increases. It was Peggy who spoke up and said 5%. Peggy, I don't think you will ever know how much it meant to the tenant advocates. Tonight, I hope you realize the enduring impact your action has had for renters here in Albany. The second issue I'm thanking Peggy for tonight is saving the consideration of the TOPA-COPA programs in the housing element. Just about every single letter from the landlords condemned TOPA-COPA. Once again, Peggy showed courage and kept it on the table. I don't have illusions that a TOPA-COPA program will be big here in Albany. I'd be thrilled if we got 1 building the entire 8 years of the housing element. I have a bouquet of flowers for you. I feel that it's such a small token, Peggy, for the empathy and courage and lasting effect on the well-being of the citizens of Albany. I'm making a pledge to you that the first TOPA-COPA building we get in Albany will get a plaque with your name on it that lets the citizens know it was through your action that this forever all-affordable building got brought to life. And I just have 30-second personal privilege. A longtime resident of Albany, Claire Ray Genzer, has passed away. She was 104. May her memory be a blessing. Thank you.
Thank you.
You stay there, Peggy. Thank you, Peggy.
Thank you so much. Beautiful, thank you.
Are there any other commenters? Yes, you can go ahead and admit them. Welcome.
Hi, good evening. This is Jeremiah Garrett Pinguelo. I just want to raise awareness about the fentanyl epidemic happening in our community and in the Bay Area in general. Recently, this past Tuesday, I was allowed to be a special guest at an Alameda County Sheriff's Office Summit meeting in Dublin at the Sheriff's Office Training Center. I was the only civilian there. I was amongst over 20 DEA agents, a U.S. attorney, HIDTA personnel was there, and I really learned a lot. I just want to mention to the city manager and city attorney, please write this down. The city could register for the OD maps. It's an overdose map. It's a live map. Whenever there's an overdose, a fentanyl overdose, and it's reported by an agency such as police department or medical personnel, it goes online. I mentioned this to the police department and fire department past couple days ago. but it's called OD Maps. I think it's .gov or .org, but I was wondering if you can get the city to sign up. All you have to do is enter the agency name and the agency number. It's only for official use only, but it provides information on where people are overdosing in fentanyl, and it's a live map. So thank you for taking note. It's OD Maps, odmap.gov or .org. It was a really nice summit meeting. I learned a lot. It was very difficult to hear mothers speak about how they lost their high school seniors from a fentanyl overdose this year. I know there's been fentanyl overdoses at Pinole High, busts outside of Oakland high schools, and things like that. So this counterfeit pills, fentanyl is very dangerous, and it comes in all sorts of forms, powder, liquid. Mostly it's in these pills that are labeled M30 or counterfeit Xanax. And so I really hope in the future, city manager, city attorney respectfully, and city council help move Albany forward with resources to bring to Albany. I'm willing to share resources I learned from the summit meeting, but just raising awareness with this fentanyl overdose epidemic, it's a very important topic. So thank you for listening.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to comment? Yes, thank you, City Clerk.
Go ahead.
Hi there. Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Oh, good. Thank you so much. I'd like to know more, the kids running on the roof of Vet Park building. Do you know what I'm talking about?
If you could, we can go ahead with your comment, and we may be
sorry. Okay.
limited in responding.
So a couple times now I see, like 11, 12, 13-year-olds running on the roof of Vet Park on the red tile above the bathrooms by the playground. I've called the city council office twice now, and both times I spoke with a very nice gentleman who said, yes, the city is aware, and apparently if there is a plan, I had left some messages for his manager. Nobody ever called back, and I'd love to know what's the plan to address kids running on the roof. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention. That's it. Okay, thank you. Just for the second speaker, because they might have missed the good of the city preamble, by state law known as the Brown Act, the council cannot discuss items that are not on the agenda except under extraordinary circumstances. Rather, items raised may be referred to a future agenda or to staff for comments. So that's the reason I wasn't engaging, but that doesn't mean we didn't hear you. So thank you for commenting. And that brings us to the consent calendar. Items on the consent calendar are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. By approval of the consent calendar, the staff recommendations will be adopted unless otherwise modified by the City Council. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a council member or a member of the audience requests removal of the items from the consent calendar. Does any council member wish to pull an item? I can't see Vice Mayor Tiedemann, but I'll look to the city clerk. No. Okay. Okay. I had a comment on item 5, so I will just pull that to come bring back for comment. Are there any members of the public who would like to have an item pulled?
Yes. Go ahead.
Yeah, 4, 5, and 6. I'm sorry, 7, 4, 7, 5, 7, 6.
Very good. And if you'd please go ahead and comment on those items now while we have you.
Okay, so 7.4, it's about investment manager selection. I'm not sure really what's going on here. How much money are you wanting to spend on hiring somebody? It doesn't say anything about how much money you want to spend hiring somebody, how long the contract would be for. And also, are you going to invest in more money than you're going to spend. I'm just not sure what you mean by investment management. If you could just please clarify possibly how much that person is going to get paid per year, how many years the contract would be. And then 7.5.
Please.
Okay. I was wondering, yeah, just what are the locations of the solar battery storage systems? I know it just says critical municipal facilities. I'm just assuming that it's possibly the City Hall, Public Works, maybe the Memorial Building. I think it would be really beneficial to possibly put one at two of our EOCs. The EOC between the police station and the fire station. Also for the EOC underneath the community center. I think that'd be a couple good locations. And then also 7.6, please.
Go ahead.
Yeah, if you could just please explain what this means, just for discussion purposes. It says ratification of nominations made by Board of Education. It's just saying the City Council adopts a resolution establishing a policy requiring City Council ratification of nominations made by Board of Education. To me, it just basically means approval. So once the Board of Education appoints somebody, then the City Council needs to make a vote to approve. Is that what that means? I was just wondering if you could clarify, please. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And so I'll go ahead and ask my question around 7.5, and then can take all this to staff for response to the extent they have information to respond with. On 7.5, which is the assessment of various city facilities for the potential of putting solar PV on them with battery storage. Can that assessment potentially take into account the full electrification of the buildings? So my current understanding is that many or most or all of the buildings have gas service that provides heating for space and for water. But obviously the need across the city is for all buildings to be electrified. And so I'm curious if these assessments will take into account that future need, future desire. With that, maybe I'll go to 7.4 first, even though I just asked that question. So the question was, how much would the investment manager cost? How much is proposed to be invested? I know all this is in the staff report, I believe. I can recall reading it.
Right, and we do have Heather here, but I don't think it's necessary. I would refer the inquiry back to the financial considerations. It's spelled out very accurately there by our finance director. The firm will have a minimum annual fee of $25,000, and then there's a chart thereunder that indicates what the next funding levels would look like depending on the investments gained.
Yeah, I mean, just roughly it was 0.1% per year, and then it went down. The more that was invested, the more they were managing, the lower the fee was, if I recall correctly, with that $25,000 floor. And the city was proposing to invest more than $2.5 million, or have them manage more than $2.5 million. So moving on to item 5, which regards the PV plus battery storage on city facilities. There was a question which facilities will be assessed, and then the question of if that can consider future electrification.
We have Elizabeth Carrad.
Great, welcome.
Good evening, Council. This is Lizzie Carrad, the city's sustainability coordinator. The first question about which facilities we would consider, EBCE will hire an independent engineer to do an assessment of all city-owned facilities to determine which are viable for the project, and those that are deemed cost-effective and feasible will move forward. So basically, any of our city facilities currently are in the running, and then we'll determine which are feasible and cost-effective. And then for the second question about electrification, it's definitely the city's goal as well as EBCE's goal to help cities electrify facilities. And of course, the all-electric equipment will work better with the solar and storage system. So we can definitely ask EBCE if that can be included in the study, though I don't know that it necessarily is at this time, though it would make sense to include that.
Thank you. think going back to the question of which facilities, I think from your answer, I'm surmising it's essentially every facility. Would that be an accurate representation?
City facilities.
City facility,
Correct,
yeah, sorry, city facility, yeah, okay, thank you. And then finally on 7-6, which is the policy for the city council to ratify Board of Education nominations. I don't know if staff has it's laid out in the report, but for the benefit of the public.
Sure, yeah, I think the summary, as stated, it accurately reflects the procedure, basically, that as the Board of Education is requested by the City Council to provide nominations to the advisory bodies to the City Council is then responsible for ratification of those nominations.
Yeah, and I appreciate how it was laid out to bring it into alignment with what's in charter in terms of requirements around appointments. So kind of a good cleanup in that regard. So with those questions answered, thank you, staff. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll move consent.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember McQuaid and seconded by Councilmember Nason to approve the consent calendar. City Clerk, would you please poll the council?
Councilmember Nason,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Tiedemann,
Yes.
Mayor Jordan,
Yes.
and Councilmember McQuaid.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you, City Clerk. That brings us to the one item of presentation, which is a quarterly financial update. With that, I'll hand it over to staff.
Thank you, Mayor. We have our Finance Director participating virtually.
Thank you for being with us. Hey there.
Yes, so it has been a little while since I have been with you guys and presented. So I have both the fourth quarter of fiscal year 22 as well as the first quarter of fiscal year 23 available. And I am going to share my screen. So I just wanted to point out a handful of items. I gave a detailed presentation to the Financial Advisory Committee, and you have that report as well. Fiscal year 22, it appears as if you're just looking straight at our operating budget, we came in with a surplus of 1.9 million. Now, this does not count any of the items that were appropriated outside of the operating budget, and there are at least 1 million of those. So at this point, we're not recommending that we reallocate any surplus per the general fund balance policy. We're simply showing, what the operating budget looked like in fiscal year 22. We will look at, once the audit is completed, we will look at, where we ended up with those additional appropriations, and we will come forward at that time to have council appropriate the funds. So after that, you can also look at the first quarter of fiscal year 23, which if you look at the revenue and the expenses separately, it looks like we're behind on revenue and ahead on expenses. But this is pretty common for first quarter. We don't hit our property tax revenue, which is, as you can see, the majority of our revenues until the second quarter. So we'll catch up in the second quarter. And then we have a handful of very large payments that come out in the first quarter. Our CalPERS unfunded liability payment and our insurance payments both come out in the first quarter, and those are larger expenses that only happen once a year. So this is common for where we are in this part of the year. Sorry, my cat broke into my office. So going back to the end of fiscal year 22 and looking at where we are in Q1 of fiscal year 23, we came in really close to budget in fiscal year 22. So it looks like we are budgeting appropriately. We're catching up. I know that there were some concerns previously that we might have over budgeted expenses, but this shows that, you know, we haven't done that. We are catching up. We still have some positions that are unfilled, but we are either bringing in temporary staffing to fill those needs, or there's overtime associated with filling those needs. So our budget is evening out. The next thing that I wanted to point out is you have a attachment 3. I have added a page to the cash and investment summary, and it's a little muddled because normally it's just one quarter, but I tried to put 2 different quarters here. So for presentation purposes, I've highlighted the first quarter of, oh, that should be 22. Oh, no, that's 20, that's 21, and that's 22. I've highlighted the September 30 balances. These are the total citywide. Now, people have been looking at this since I've been presenting it, and I'm like, wow, we have a lot of cash. And technically that's true, but it's spread across a number of different funding sources, and most of them are, you know, dedicated funding sources. So I added another page to this presentation that breaks out where that money actually is. So you can see our general fund, and this kind of goes to show you, you know, we have those larger expenses in that first quarter, like I was saying. So you'll see the June balances, and then all of a sudden it drops because we haven't gotten our property tax payments yet. And so it's just our normal cash flow in the first quarter of any fiscal year. And then it breaks it out with, okay, where is the rest of that money? So you'll see a lot of money is in special revenue funds. So our parcel taxes, the Alameda County Transportation Commission Measure B and BB funds, the gas tax, and these are all, you know, funds that are often tied with our capital improvement plan. So they're dedicated for very specific purposes. And this number will tie back to your number up here, but it just gives a better idea of where the city's money is when you look at that cash number on that first page. The only other thing that I really wanted to point out, and I am going to stop sharing my screen and kick the cat out. The only other thing that I wanted to point out today is that the business license taxes were recalculated per the city code, and it's a fairly significant increase for this year. So before we sent out the bills, we wanted to reach out and make sure that people understood how those rates are calculated, and that, you know, it is going to be going up this year. So the business license taxes are calculated by taking the consumer price index for wage earners. It's the CPIW from June of each year, and this is that specified in the Albany Municipal Code. Historically, this has just been something that the treasurer has adjusted each year per the code, and it's never come before council because there's nothing really that council does. But because this year the increase was calculated at 7.6%, we just wanted to make sure that everyone was aware. We do plan on sending the bills out next week or the week after. They'll go to the printer to be stuffed and mailed. So businesses should watch out for those. If a business does not receive their bill, it is still their responsibility to pay the tax by January 31st. So if someone doesn't receive their bill and they are concerned, they are more than welcome to reach out to the finance department as soon as possible. We're posting the business license tax rates tonight and or tomorrow. And once the bills go out, if people don't get them, they can contact us and we can provide them for them. And that was it for what I really wanted to make sure that everyone knew.
Thank you, Director. Are there any questions for the Finance Director? Yes.
Yeah, my question is about how much we are spending on the pavement maintenance. And I found the category for maintenance in the public right-of-way. But can you address, because we looked back in 2019, we looked at how much we should be spending to achieve various scenarios. And can you tell me where we stand right now? What are we spending on pavement maintenance?
So I think the street and roads maintenance in the operating budget is not what you're looking for. You're looking for what's in the capital improvement plan, and those are not in the general fund budget, which is what you have in front of you. The capital improvement plan update will come later. Those are more, when I was showing the cash and investment summary, those are more of those special funds that pay for the paving maintenance, which is really, the repaving and things like that. That is not budgeted in the general fund operating budget, as far as I'm aware. If there's anything more substantial in there, Mark would have to address that.
Okay, I would like to get that addressed. I think it's important. We do make a commitment when bonds go before the voters. There are, various commitments that are made, and we committed to achieving and maintaining a pavement condition index of 60, and we're not there yet. And we need to have, if we're not doing it, we need to have a plan to do it and show that we're, implementing our plan to achieve it. So this is something I've learned about in my role as a representative on the ACTC. So I would like to get that question answered maybe at the next meeting. Thank you.
I can offer, I just brought up the CIP and I can give you the numbers from that.
Oh,
part of the
okay.
answer. So from 2020 to 2020 and 2021, it was 1.9 million a year, and 22.
Is that budgeted or actually spent?
This is in the CIP. So if it's actually spent, I can't attest.
Yeah, no, I want to know, I realize,
Okay.
that's what we budgeted.
I see.
We budgeted 1.9 because the idea was that at 1.9, what the PTAP said is that our PCI would go up 5 points over 5 years.
Okay.
So I know that's the budget,
Okay.
but what I want to know is what we are actually spending.
Okay.
Thank you.
I can't answer that. I did have a question or two. There's and I appreciate you breaking out the special revenue funds very much. Thank you for providing that level of detail. It just keeps getting better each time. I want to recognize that. There's a storm drain fund and a street paving and storm drain improvement tax fund. I just looked at a property tax bill, so I think I understand where those come from. They're both parcel taxes, colloquially speaking. Is that right? But they're separate parcel taxes?
One's a parcel tax and one's a fee.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So I think that those are explained in the biennial budget. Let me
Probably
just
so.
pull that up real quick.
Yeah. That is probably the case. I guess, yeah, the one being a fee would make sense because I don't have any recollection of it ever being on the ballot. So So that one's under the council's sole control then.
There are stipulations on fees. It has to very specifically recover the cost. It can't be a revenue generating thing.
Right. I mean, it's got to match the benefit provided, the need. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, thanks. Are there any comments from the public?
Go ahead.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think it's really great. Councilmember Rochelle Mason brought up, you know, the paving issue. I just want to make point to where I know we spend our own money, but we should be also seeking, you know, East Bay Mud to come and pay for a lot of that. I know for myself, Cornell Street between Solano and Marin was paved, you know, 5-6 years ago, and it was brand new. And East Bay Mud has been doing work tearing up Cornell Avenue for the past 4 or 5 years. And if you drive down Cornell between Solano and Marin, I feel like I'm driving on a dirt road in an unincorporated area. And it's the last thing I imagine a city street would be like that was just freshly paved. And so I think 100% that East Bay Mud needs to be responsible for a lot of streets in Albany. And we need to be actively pursuing East Bay Mud to be reimbursed, or to be those streets to be paved and paid for by East Bay Mud, because they are 100% at fault. So I just want to make note of that we need to seek East Bay Mud to start paying for these streets that they demolished, because we already spent a lot of money repaving these things just a few years ago. And after we repave a street, here comes East Bay Mud ripping it all up. So it's just kind of poor planning in a sense. We should talk to East Bay Mud first and base our streets around East Bay Mud projects. Say, hey, East Bay Mud, what are you planning in the next 5 years? Okay, let's wait to pave those streets till after the work is done, sort of thing. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I can offer, to my knowledge, and staff can correct me if I'm wrong, that in fact that planning does occur. There is coordination with that mud, and the city, once it repaves a street, seeks to have a 5-year moratorium on breaching that maintained pavement. I don't know, staff, and this is obviously stretching the limit of the topic, but if you have any knowledge on when EMBUD, I know EMBUD has repaved a lot of the streets that has been working, done subsurface work on south of Marin, which happy to report, because that was quite a long time in coming, including that block of Cornell south of Marin, and it was a full repave curb to curb. Does staff have any knowledge, and again, if you don't, that's fine, on when the block that was brought up by the commenter might be repaved?
We'll have to check. It sounds like the work may be ongoing or finishing up, so it's usually a month or two out after that. It is sometimes subcontracted. What I can say is our staff has a great working relationship with their staff, so we will continue to pursue solutions as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and I will offer, I mean, that MUD's work probably helped our PCI, because as I understand it, they paid to do most of the repaving. I don't know if the city contributed at all, but a lot of it was paid for by MUD. Finally, I just want to recognize and thank that on page 7 of the budget to actuals is something I don't think I've seen before. Maybe I missed it if it was there, but it was a breakdown under franchise and other taxes, which is something I've asked for before. So I'm very enthused to see that now, to see that level of detail. So thank you for including that. Didn't get by me. And with that, unless there's any other comments, thank you, Director. And now we'll get back to my notes and we will continue on. So next, we have a public hearing. This is for financing of the Satellite Affordable Housing Associates, sometimes known as the SAHA project, a 62-unit multifamily housing project. And this opens the public hearing, and if staff will provide what we need to know.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Jordan. My name is Jeff Baugh. I'm the Community Development Director. I'll be joined here in a moment by Rafael Yaquin. He is our outside counsel with Goldfarb and Lippman, who's been assisting in this project for the last 4 or 5 years. And in a moment, also Eve Stewart, who is with SAHA, will also be available to address the council and answer any of your questions. So I'd like to kick it off with a relatively brief staff report. As council knows, we've been working with SAHA for the past 4 years to develop a city-owned parcel that's at the northeast corner of Cleveland and Washington. The project will feature 62 units of affordable housing. It'll be the most significant affordable housing project in the city when completed. I won't go through all the chronology of the project, but I will note that these projects take a long time, and this is something that began really back in 2011, more than a decade ago, with the acquisition of this property from Caltrans. That led to the development of the Peggy Thompson Park, as well as the opportunity to create this parcel for affordable housing. The City Council in 2016 approved a general plan that designated this site as a housing site, and I think at the time it was recognized that it would be a great opportunity, in particular for affordable housing. Since then, there have been many council actions related to the negotiations with SAHA, as well as approval of the design itself. And notably, in October of 2020, the City Council approved a disposition and development agreement, and that's essentially a real estate contract with SAHA that will lead to the development of the project. And the action before you this evening is to get council approval to execute some amendments to that disposition and development agreement. The overall objective of the agreement and the project is to provide the site to SAHA at nominal cost in order that they can focus financial resources on the construction of a high-quality project that maximizes the affordability of the housing for future residents. The items that are before you this evening don't change any of the key elements of the project in terms of the number of units, the affordability, and so forth. But there are some technical revisions of note that we do need your approval for. First, it relates to the bike path. Originally, the disposition and development agreement included construction of a small segment of bike path through the site into the implementation of the project. It was hoped that the cost of that would be relatively minor and that the installation of that path could occur at the same time as the construction of the project next to it, and that incremental increase in cost would be paid for by the city in the form of a grant. As it turns out, the revised costs submitted to the city are over $350,000, and as a result, staff recommendation is that we treat the construction of the bike path, which still will occur eventually, as a separate city project at some point in the future when we have a bigger grant to do, do a segment that connects to other roadways or other elements of the bike trail. The segment we were talking about was just a few hundred feet and would basically be a bike trail to nowhere on an interim basis. Related to this, the revisions also have the city taking over responsibility for the maintenance of the easement area. The agreement does provide for a public access easement where the trail will eventually go, and we would take over the maintenance of that area at the time of the close of escrow. The second key aspect of this amendment is some changes to the documents related in the very unlikely remote possibility of a foreclosure. And we're looking particularly at ground lease and regulatory agreements that establish the rent levels of the project over time. And in particular, in that worst case scenario where the project is losing money, and if a lender forecloses, if the debt service can't be met and the lender forecloses on the property, the lenders will want to modify the affordability level of the units in order to restore the overall cash flow to a break-even level. These regulatory agreements set the limit on those rent adjustments. And in particular, the proposal that's before you this evening is to make sure that the extremely low income units that are controlled by the city would be protected from rent increases. So those residents that are most vulnerable financially wouldn't be impacted by the foreclosure. Other units would adjust pursuant to state law. Keep in mind that there are both county and state funds involved in this project and agreements that control the scenario with the state and county. So we basically match those requirements and also have a meet and confer process in the, again, very remote scenario where we're having to deal with kind of a worst case outcome. Related to this, various forms of project financing originally were intended to be secured by the city's ground lease, not by the underlying fee ownership is the term of art, underlying land that the city controls. As it turns out, Alameda County's Measure A1 bond funds, this is a bond measure that was approved by the voters in Alameda County 6 or 8 years ago, I believe. Their implementation policies require the city's deed of trust be recorded against the city's ownership. Now, it's possible that we'll be getting a waiver to that, but we don't know for sure, and we don't know whether or not that waiver would occur before or after the close of escrow. And that may set off a chain reaction where the state also would want to record their deed of trust against the city. Keep in mind, these are other regulatory agencies whose interests are in alignment with ours in terms of developing and preserving affordable housing. So what we'd like to be able to do is have some flexibility to, if necessary, accept those other regulatory agencies recording on the city's fee simple ownership. We will continue to strive to avoid that scenario. I think we have the collaboration of the county in that objective. It's just a matter of going through the steps in the next couple of weeks to try to get that to happen. And then finally is kind of related to the status of all this. This is a project that involves numerous other stakeholders, both other government agencies, as I've already mentioned, plus lenders and equity investors in the project. And there's a lot of moving parts right now. The target for close of escrow is sometime between December 1st and December 8th. And these documents continue to be passed back and forth with some minor technical changes back and forth. We'd like to be able to have council's authorization to allow the city manager, with consultation of legal counsel and staff, to be able to make minor amendments that are consistent with the overall objective that the council sets. But that gives us a little bit of flexibility as we're coming into this crunch time of getting the documents completed and executed and the project underway. Ideally, by the second week of December, if not sooner, all the documents would be finalized, the property would be transferred to SAHA, and project would begin soon, construction would begin soon thereafter. So I'll pause there if you have any questions for me, and then if acceptable, council could invite Eve Stewart with SAHA to come up to answer any questions you might have of SAHA directly. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is your preference that we ask questions that are relevant to the content you just provided now, or get the presentation from SAHA as well first?
It's up to council's desire.
All right, fair enough. Yeah. Are there any questions for Director Bond at this time? Okay, I have a question. In the situation of foreclosure, should the council approve the recording against the fee simple or the land itself, would the city have any exposure beyond, financial exposure beyond loss of the land?
No, and Raphael, if you want to elaborate on that, please feel free, but my understanding is that we would not.
Sure, and to be clear, the county's requirement is for the regulatory agreement that secures the county bond loan be recorded against the fee, not the deed of trust. And so there wouldn't be necessarily a risk of foreclosure if the county regulatory agreement were recorded against the fee. And the reason we're trying to prevent any documents from being recorded against the city's fee interest is that, as Mr. Bond explained, it does have a domino effect. Other lenders may want to record their deeds of trust against the the interest of the city's rights in the property, and that's why we're trying to avoid that, is so that no mortgages get recorded against the city's fee interest.
Thank you. But I understand what is being asked of the council is to provide the latitude to go either way because of the tight timing on escrow. So that's what I'm asking.
Yes.
So there's the regulatory agreement, is the action that's before us approving amendments to the DDA as well as the regulatory agreement?
I should have explained. So the DDA is the agreement, and all these other agreements are attachments to the DDA.
Okay, thank you.
So it's one action incorporating a series of documents.
And so I know another item that I think is in there has been discussed is what happens to, if there is a foreclosure, what happens to the rental cost, the cost of rent, the rate of rent on the various residences. Maybe you could say a few words about that.
Raphael, I think you can explain it better than I can, so I'll defer to you if you don't mind.
Yes, absolutely. So what we've negotiated with the lenders is essentially the maximum amount of preservation allowed and still making the project feasible for the bank to lend, given the risk that they underwrite to. And so the restrictions that apply post foreclosure are explained in the regulatory agreement and are intended to maximize the number of units that remain affordable post foreclosure. I don't have the regulatory agreement in front of me right now, but the recollection is that essentially we maintain 11 extremely low income units. That is in relation to the fact that this is a redevelopment property, and we have a continuing obligation to ensure that the city target the affordable housing for extremely low income households. And then there's a ability for the developer to shift several of the units up to the next income level. All of this is done to, one, try to protect the most vulnerable residents, two, to make it financially feasible for the project to continue long term, and three, to get financing today. And so that's the goal of the revisions to the regulatory agreement.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I do appreciate the protection of the extremely low-income residences, since those are the hardest to come by. You mentioned that the cost estimate for the multi-use / bike path segment was $355,000. Is that just for the paving? Because my understanding is the grading will be done by the project.
It was, we weren't able to sort all that out. We just
Okay.
didn't have time to get it sorted out. So there was more than just pay. That's a lot of asphalt.
Yeah, I was like, for a few hundred feet of asphalt, it's going to be gold-plated.
There was components that included site drainage and lighting, and then there was needed to be some negotiations ultimately over what was included in that and what shouldn't be included in that. And in the part of the recommendation before you this evening is just in the interest of time. We need to set this aside so that the project itself can move forward.
Yeah.
We wish we could have worked it out. We tried, but we're here to say that we need to do it separately.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think all that infrastructure, there's a certain logic to doing that as a part of the whole project when there's a grant for it or other funding, as long as they're doing the grading, which sounds like this project is doing the grading. So great. Okay. Well, that's all the questions I have. With that, if there's any members
And
of the
if you could bring up Eve
Oh, right,
Stewart,
sorry,
that would be great.
SAHA, yes. I apologize. Welcome. I see that said she's rejoining, as a panelist. I guess that's the promotion flag. Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you so much. Good evening, Mayor Jordan and members of the City Council. I'm Eve Stewart with SAHA, and I'm very excited to be here tonight for this item and to be so close to starting construction on Albany Family Apartments, which is what we've been calling our development, although we would like to come up with a new name. So if you have suggestions, please let me know. As you know, we've been working very closely with city staff for many years, starting back in 2017. To develop this project, and when completed, it will offer 62 new apartment homes and amenities for families earning between 20 and 60% of the area median income. We will also have 19 of the homes set aside for individuals and families who are experiencing homelessness. All residents will have access to on-site services to help them succeed in housing and support achievement of their personal and family goals. The building is all electric with photovoltaic renewable energy and will be built to Greenpoint rated gold standard. We have overcome an extremely competitive state funding environment to secure over $50 million in state and other financing in order to construct this housing. As Jeff mentioned, these funding sources come with strict deadlines to finalize our agreements and begin construction by early December. In addition, we're contending with rising construction and materials costs, as well as sharply increasing interest rates, and which is all to say that time is of the essence. We are deeply grateful for the opportunity to work in partnership with the City of Albany to help ameliorate the local housing crisis, and we thank you deeply for your support. I look forward to starting construction in roughly 2 weeks' time and to the day in the not very distant future when we can celebrate the grand opening and welcome residents to their new home.
Thank you. Did you say 2 weeks' time?
We're trying to get going in about 2 weeks, yes.
Wow, okay. I heard close of escrow. I didn't realize that actually meant. Wow, okay, well, that is exciting.
Gold shovel.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, the gold shovel.
Councilor Moquade's offering she has a gold shovel, so she's ready to go.
I even know where it is.
Right on. Well, thank you very much. And with that, if there are no questions, not seeing any from the council, we'll go to public comment. And we have a commenter in the room. Thank you.
Hi, this is Margie Marks. I'm speaking tonight on behalf of Albany Thrives Together. We're extremely excited about this project. We hope the council approves it, including letting the city manager give her the flexibility to do whatever she needs to do to have this come to fruition. So I want to thank SAHA and everyone that's been involved in this. I know Jeff has done a tremendous amount of work. Thank the staff for everything, and thank you, council, and really look forward to breaking ground on this project.
Thank you.
And Mayor, just to clarify that you had opened the public hearing as this was a public hearing matter.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I should have opened it, I guess, before public comment. I opened it right at the very outset. So thank you, City Attorney. Welcome.
Yeah, good evening. It's Jeremiah. Thank you. You know, Mayor Jordan, you are doing actually a really good job being mayor. I mean, you're very sharp and you ask, it sounds like you ask all the right questions. I just want to say, keep up the good work. I just noticed that you're just doing really well as being mayor. You're keeping everything organized. But besides that, I was wondering just a few clarifications. So the City of Albany either owns the land or is about to own the land. I'm just not sure who actually owns the land. And then let's say hypothetically the city owns the land, and then someone's going to be leasing the land from the city to develop a building. I'm just not sure if the city owns the land, if the city is going to own the building. So I was just wanting to clarify who owns what. Who owns the land, who's going to own the building, and, you know, just down to the nitty gritty, who's going to be the landlord, right? Somebody wants to apply to rent in there, you know, where would they apply? At City Hall?
Thank you. I think that was the end of your comment. Are there any other comments, City Clerk? Yes, thank you.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Hello? This is Jim Beller, also speaking for Albany Tribes Together, and I'd just like to second what Margie said. We're very excited about seeing this project get started, and I don't think the council will see, or I hope the council won't see any reasons not to let this go forward. Thanks again, and thanks to all of the staff for all their hard work.
Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you. I think I'll start with the last question first, if that's all right, and direct it to Ms. Stewart, if I may, which was, who is the property manager, who is the property owner, and how would people apply once this wonderful project is up and running?
Sure. So SAHA will be the property manager. We're based in Berkeley, and we have about 80 properties that we own and manage. So we have a professional property management team of approximately 200 staff. So we'll be doing the property management. And then in terms of leasing, I really encourage folks who are looking for housing to go to our website, sahahomes.org. And you can click on our Find Housing link and sign up to receive a notification whenever we are taking applications for housing. So you'll only get an email if we have an opening, and it will have instructions on how to apply. For this particular location, we will start taking applications approximately 6 months prior to projected completion. So sometime in probably spring 2024, we will be opening the application process. And again, folks will apply to SAHA. And unfortunately, we often have much more interest than we have housing available. So everyone who applies by the application date will be randomly assigned a number, and then we'll take applications in the order of that randomly assigned number.
Thank you very much. And I just had the city attorney jump into my mind unbidden to say we have closed the public hearing. Is that correct? Yes, okay. So we're just having a council now, and I think Councilmember Nason, I think you saw moving towards asking a question. Did I see that? No, okay.
I'm
okay.
Good. I'm good.
Okay. So there were some other questions that were asked. Does the city own the land? I can answer that one. Yes, the city owns the land. It bought the land from Caltrans after the freeway was moved. My understanding. And does it own the building? No, it will not own the building. SAHA will own the building. There is a kind of a complicated lease arrangement, as I understand it, between SAHA and the city. I don't know that we necessarily want to go into that, but it's not a revenue generator for the city, I think is enough said.
That's correct. It's a complicated arrangement, but it's not unusual in the affordable housing world to have, for projects on public land, to have this kind of an arrangement.
Yeah, great, thank you. So with that, is there any discussion by the council?
I'd like
to entertain a motion. I would move the staff recommendation.
I'll second.
Okay. Sorry, Vice Mayor, you're out in the virtual world, so I saw your hand up, but so resolution 2022-107 has been moved by Councilmember Nason and seconded by Councilmember McQuaid.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Do you have the right resolution? Is it?
Maybe I don't.
Is it 119?
Okay, yeah, I probably failed to update this, so thank you for correcting that. I appreciate that.
2022, 119.
Well, I'll blame it on my broken fingers. I copied this and didn't update everything, so thank you. 2022-119. And with that, City Clerk, please poll the council.
Mayor Jordan?
Yes.
Councilmember McQuay?
Yes.
Councilmember Nason?
Yes.
And Vice Mayor Tiedemann?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Yay. It's a new dawning era with the UC Village building being built as well. There's going to be a lot of projects going on. So with that, we move to, I really am using an old template here that I didn't update. I apologize. Let me get to the actual agenda here. With that, we move to unfinished business, which is consideration of a reimbursement agreement for public improvements related to storm drain improvements at 540 San Pablo Avenue. This is sometimes colloquially referred to as the Albany Bowl Project. Staff, if you please present.
Thank you again, Mayor Jordan. I'm going to take a moment here to bring up an image to use while I'm making presentation. Great. So this is an agenda item that addresses storm drain infrastructure at 540 San Pablo Avenue. As Mayor Jordan mentioned, this is, I think we all know it as the Albany Bowl site. A little bit of background on this. In October of 2021, the City Council granted planning level approval for a 207-unit apartment project at this location. We've been working with the developer since that time. One of the challenges with this project is that the existing Albany Bowl property building has an existing storm drain that runs underneath the building. And in the image on the screen, the storm drain starts at the southeast corner of the building and jogs through the middle of the building and goes up to essentially the northwest corner of the building. And ultimately from that point, the stormwater continues to flow towards ultimately Cerrito Creek. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. This storm drain handles quite a bit of the flow of stormwater from the north and northeast part of the city, and sometimes referred to as Middle Creek. It used to be, of course, a creek ages ago. We've been working with the developer to come up with a mutually beneficial resolution to this storm drain culvert. We're interested in making this a public facility that is accessible for repairs and maintenance, and it's not a good engineering practice to build a new building on top of an existing storm drain, particularly one that's decades old. Public Works staff, and incidentally, I'm joined this evening with my colleague David Lamb, who's here in the room, and Public Works Director Mark Hurley, who's out on Zoom, I believe, to study the alignment and sizing of this pipe, and to consider the overall kind of the big picture of how best to realign this around the project. We gave the council a briefing in July to give you an update on where we were going with these discussions. And basically we've come to a two-step process, or a two-phase process. The first phase is the relocation of the pipe that's underneath the building that I outlined there. And that's what's the green line here on the edge of First Clay Street and then on Adams Street. This would be a 54-inch line. It would be an increase from the existing size. And it would be in the street along Clay Street, a public right-of-way along Clay, and actually on the edge of the private property on Adams, in part because there's a lot of infrastructure in Adams already, not the least of which is a large PG&E natural gas transmission line, which we all want to stay as far away from as possible during construction. The second part is to create a relief line for those events where there's more water than the existing old system can handle properly. So it would basically, in normal flow, the water would continue on towards Cerrito Creek. There would be some additional relief line constructed along Adams to go north along Adams towards Cerrito Creek as well. Again, this is just a relief valve for the high flow events. David can talk more about the details of that if you wish. Our agreement with the developer is to build this segment, the green segment, because that's right immediately adjacent to their project or in their project site, and a portion of the relief system that's going to be right in front of a series of townhouses that were part of the project approval. And we all think it would be much better to put the infrastructure in at the same time the project is under construction, rather than to have to come back in front of someone's new townhome to tear up the street and do it again. The cost-sharing arrangement is basically it's kind of a complicated formula because there are lots of different small pieces to this, but essentially the core of it is splitting the cost of the relocation, essentially splitting the cost. 49% of the cost would be covered by the city of the replacement of in-kind in the existing size, and then the city would pay fully the amount of the marginal increase in the facility size for the green line, the 48 inches to the 54 inches, and then all of the cost of this relief system, because that would be all new public infrastructure. So taken together, the estimate is roughly 1.15 million, and this agreement would allow us to utilize our storm drain funds. Again, David or Mark can address those particular questions to upgrade this particular piece of infrastructure. At this point, I'll just pause to see if you have any questions for any of us. We do have a representative of the development team available if you have any questions for them specifically.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff or the development team? I'm going to wait till I can see the Vice Mayor Tiedemann, if I may, just in case he has a question. No question. Okay. Well, very good then. So with that, I guess we go to public comment, or did the developer want to make some comments?
We weren't planning to have any comments from the developer?
That's fine. I'm not asking that they do have that. I just don't want to exclude them if they had some plan to. So with that, we'll go to public comment.
Thanks. Is there any way to incorporate a water collecting sidewalk? I know one of the commissions talked about there's these sidewalks that collect water and have plants grow in them or something. I know one of the locations was underneath the BART tracks on Marin. There are those 2 trees right there in front of the bench that potentially that project was going to incorporate some sort of sidewalk plant thing. I know they have them in El Cerrito along San Pablo. It's just these sidewalks that kind of collect water. I don't know if this is a good use for that situation. This kind of sounds like underground, just running the water straight to the creek. Okay, you know, that sounds great. But if we could get some sort of sidewalk collecting things to help water some plants would be great. And the last thing I want to say is, what about water filters? Are there any locations to where there's going to be filters to filter this storm drain water before it goes in the creek? You know, such as, you know, somebody changes their oil on the sidewalk or something, and then the oil goes down the storm drain. You know, there's this new building that's going to be built. And when you build a new building, there's a lot of particles that are left over during construction. You know, the roofing, there's a lot of tar and a lot of gravel and just a lot of dust and a lot of fine particles. And the first winter, the first rain after construction, a lot of this is going to be going down the storm drains. So my final thing is, I really hope some sort of filtration, some sort of filters are at a couple points along the way before the creek, because it's important to somehow filter some of this water before it goes in the creek, where I've seen turtles in that creek, I've seen ducks, you know, there's little minnows, there's plant life, and, you know, I know it goes straight in the bay. So we want to keep our water clean. So I just want to recommend some sort of filters, some sort of filtration system to where the filters can be changed once a year. Maybe it's some sort of net to where Public Works can go, you know, clean out the net or vacuum it out or whatever they got to do. So please incorporate some sort of water filtration system. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you. Some of those questions are beyond this project, but an opportunity for some public information if staff is willing to make some statements about green infrastructure.
Yes.
Not part of the storm drain realignment, but in the project in general and just more generally across the city.
Right, I'd be happy to. There is a requirement that comes out of the Federal Clean Water Act, and it works its way through various state regulatory agencies down to cities that requires all new development to implement what's called low-impact development stormwater treatment measures. So there's a fairly complicated engineering exercise of figuring out what those are, that maximizing the infiltration of stormwater where practical, and where that's to the extent possible, and then also use landscape features as a biofiltration method to filter out some of those contaminants that are coming off of parking lots, in particular, and roadways. So the private portion of this project does incorporate that in compliance with these laws. And as we're developing infrastructure all through the city, we'd also be looking to incorporate green building standards in our work as well. The city's infrastructure work is often subject to these same regulations as private development work. So we do follow those requirements carefully, and they've just recently been updated about maybe 6 months ago, new standards that reduce the types of, or I should say, increase the number of projects that will be subject to that. This project was always going to be subject to it because of its size, but now you'll see smaller projects also having to do those kinds of treatments as well.
Interesting. Any other discussion or questions?
I have a comment.
Yeah.
Actually, I do have one question. This looks like it'll be funded through the Street and Storm Drain Fund. We have enough money in there?
I will defer that question to the Public Works Director, who I think is out in Zoom land.
Hello.
Hello.
We're here. Okay, got it. Mark Hurley, Public Works Director. Yes, we do have funds available in the Street and Storm Drain Fund. This is the parcel tax, and it'll come from fund balance, so it won't impact any of our current projects. And it'll be factored into our future planning as well.
Great, thank you very much. And my comment is we're soon to be undertaking 2 huge projects, bigger than we've done in a long time, and there are 2 of them. And I'm concerned about our bandwidth and making sure that we have enough support for staff, that we don't basically drive you all into the ground. And that the council sort of thinks about that going forward, that we can't just dump all this work on the current staff without some kind of perhaps extra support, or at least patience on other things that maybe aren't going to move quite as quickly. And I just want us all to be cognizant of that fact. Thank you.
If I could ask a question, my understanding from the report is that the developer would be building this structure, so
Right,
it wouldn't
no,
be following. There'd be some staff.
I don't expect them out there building it, but it's an impact on their day-to-day operations, I would assume.
And it has been.
Yes.
Right, it has been. I just kind of, I guess, want to recognize that it's a big deal.
Yeah, I would second that, and also express appreciation for all the, obviously an immense amount of work that's been done on both of these items tonight, and encourage the staff to come forward to the council in the future if and when additional resources are needed to get the job done. Thank you.
Courtesy of item 8-1, I'll just relay that the storm drain fund has 1.4 million and the street paving and storm drain fund has 5.1 million. Doesn't mean it's all available, doesn't mean it's all scheduled, right. But I will relay that I met with staff, thank them for taking me through the matters that I was interested in, which was what is being used to design the capacity of this structure. And because I was concerned that it was historic precipitation data, which is unfortunately no longer a guide to the future, given what we all have done in the civilization of the climate. So it was a good conversation, and it is based on historic data, generally speaking. That said, staff took me through, sizing this particular segment up to address future larger storm events. Greater variability in storm events would not really help because you've got constraints downstream and upstream, so that it's really a watershed scale issue, and there is planning coming along for that in the future to look at options of how to deal with that increased precipitation events. So with that, I think we're at a point where we could.
I'll move we adopt Resolution 2022-120.
I'll second.
It's been moved by Councilmember McQuaid and seconded by Councilmember Nason to approve Resolution 2022-120. City Clerk, please poll the council.
Vice Mayor Tiedemann?
Yes.
Mayor Jordan?
Yes.
Councilmember McQuay?
Yes.
Councilmember Nason?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you. And that brings us to reports basically on regional bodies and any other meetings that council members want to report on.
Don't think I've got any.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, I've got some. We didn't do this, I think, the last time, so I've got a couple of extra ones, including the pension board, which is.
Thank you for attending those, by the way, in my stead. I think that's the one you're attending in.
Always educational. We had an East Bay, League of California Cities East Bay Division meeting. Oops. I attended the district attorney's remembrance of people killed by domestic violence, which is always, I think, the last Friday in October, and it's an incredibly moving event, and I hope that the new district attorney will continue that. I attended the annual East Bay Housing Organization meeting where I was elected to their board of directors. We had an amazing United Against Hate event last week with a showing of Abby Ginsburg, who actually lives in Albany, her film, and then they came for us, and a wonderful discussion afterwards with members of the community who actually had been incarcerated during World War II and their experiences. We had a housing authority meeting, and last week I attended the Cal OES Mitigation Summit, or at least one day of it. So that's it for me.
Thank you for serving on the new board.
We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. Vice Mayor Tiedemann, do you have anything to report?
Yes, I attended an East Bay Community Energy Board meeting last week where we accomplished a lot. Mainly we elected a new chair because ours is unfortunately stepping down from her seat on the Emeryville City Council. We also passed a tolling agreement to provide EV charging as part of their phase 1 of rolling that out, as well as a couple of others that I'm not remembering as well.
Thank you. I did attend meetings, but I have to claim again that my mind got somewhat erased by what happened yesterday, and I'm not prepared, so I will report next time.
Yeah, I'll actually report. I realized I did have an ACTC meeting, and I'll report on everything ACTC at the next meeting. I should mention, I guess, that I did attend the Lions Club versus City of Albany hearing in San Francisco.
Yeah, and I actually did attend the Albany CERT pop-up in Memorial Park for a bit yesterday, so I want to thank them for doing that work. And with that, we come to future agenda items. Are there any items that members would like to have on the next regular meeting?
Not substantive, no, thank you.
Noting that it is the last regular meeting for a couple of the members. Yeah. Not seeing any indications, then I think we are at the point where we adjourn. Looks like. So thank you, City Clerk, City Manager, City Attorney, staff that was here and is now gone, City Council members and Vice Mayor.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.